What is going on, people? Good morning on this Wednesday after another victorious Florida Gator basketball victory. I am Dylan Denmark. That is Graham Marsh. And Graham, I think it's confirmed the Florida Gators will win the national championship in the beginning of April. Yes or yes?
We here at Denmark and Marsh would like to be the first to congratulate the Florida Gators on their 2024-2025 national championship season. Thank you. It's been a great year, and they're gonna hang the banner and watch the confetti fall in April. In all seriousness, I mean, this team has unlocked a new level, and if they keep playing like this, man, it is going to be an absolute pleasure to watch them the rest of the season, and it's going to be an absolute problem for any team trying to beat them, because the level they've unlocked offensively with Urban Klavzar getting in the game and shooting the three at a really effective clip. Thomas Houck has clearly gotten the green light from Todd Golden to pull up on some of those wide open threes that he gets at the top of the key, and he's hitting them. He's hitting them with success. And I think as a result of that, not just are those two hitting shots, but everyone else is pulling up with more confidence as well. And all of a sudden, man, when this team shoots well, when this team can shoot the three well, there's not a lot of ways you can stop them, because they're already such a physical team inside. They're so athletic. They get so many rebounds. You can't push this team around. The one kind of weakness for them offensively all year has been shooting the basketball overall. Obviously, Walter Clayton's a good shooter and all that, but just generally speaking, the team wasn't shooting the ball at a super effective clip. They shot the ball 40% last night on the road. I mean, if they shoot like that, because the other thing too, Dylan, is that when they shoot the ball this well, it cuts down on their turnovers, because all of a sudden the teams they're playing against, the floor spacing is much better for Florida offensively, and teams can't just crowd the paint and crowd lanes like they used to be. So less balls get tied up when you're driving to the rim, less passing lanes get intercepted, and that sort of thing, because you're more worried about shooters. When they got that type of ball movement going on and that type of shooting, they're really going to be really, 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 really tough to stop.
Yeah, I mean, we sat here last week and I was asking you, was Florida's, was their best basketball behind them, late December, early January, when they were on a roll before really conference play started? You get to Auburn and they're down 20-11. It's like, okay, it's going to be one of those games. It was like 5-6 minutes in the game. It just didn't feel like they had a rhythm. I can't remember if they called a timeout or if it came after a TV timeout. But Florida found something, and then they just ran with it, and they never looked back. And then last night, they're in a dogfight. Alex Condon, who we'll get to in his injury, he goes down first 30 seconds of the game. You're like, dude, we're already down two starters on the road. And you clearly saw Florida transition from what they usually do. They went small. No, they didn't really go small, but you saw them change what they wanted to do and push the ball and find easy buckets, and it worked. I mean, Walter Clayton, that dude, Hack was talking about this last night. I really don't consider him a shooter. Like, he does shoot the ball well. That dude, him seeing the floor. I mean, some of those passes he did to start the second half when they started 17-0, it was like that's different, man. That's
His
tough.
pass late in the game to Aberdeen for a wide open three was crazy. Like Walt was in the corner. He drives for like 2-3 dribbles toward the paint, and Aberdeen is sitting up at the top, and he does a little overhead pass to him, right on the money. Aberdeen catch in motion, pull up, cash. And that's what I'm saying, man. When they start hitting like that, and Walt is seeing the court that well, I was about to say seeing the field that well. We're still mine is still in football, but when he's seeing the court that well, to your point, He's really starting to. And I saw our man Clinton talking about how y'all doubted them last week. You're right. I was doubting them hard last week. I was worried about a couple things. I thought there were some times where they were looking really clunky, and I thought against good teams, those good teams were going to make them pay. Um, we've already gone over a couple of things that I think have really changed, and the main thing is hitting threes. But I think it's clear, Dylan, that Walter Clayton is really coming into his own as a point guard and starting to feel more natural to him. Not just a guard that can score that just happens to bring the ball up. He's becoming more of the true point guard and becoming more of the true leader. You see him directing traffic offensively a little bit more now. You see him a little bit more in command, getting not just himself but other guys on the court available to take advantage of mismatches when they do arrive. He's cut way back on some of the dumb turnovers. Like early in the season, he was always – it always seemed like he was good for 3 or 4 bad turnovers, like whether it was just a stupid pass or lazy dribbling or whatever. It felt like because he wasn't a true point guard and because he wasn't maybe necessarily used to that, he did. I mean, I remember against Kentucky, he had a few, and that arguably cost him the game. But now it feels like that doesn't happen anymore. And it also feels like, to your point that you were just saying, it feels like he is crossing half court with the ball now with such a more clear understanding and clear idea of what he wants to do, what Todd wants them to accomplish, and the best and most efficient way to do that. It feels like now he's really at the controls and he's really directing traffic with a whole lot of confidence, and that's really encouraging to see.
All right, let's get to the injuries that happened. Alex Condon goes down 30 seconds into the game. One of the Mississippi State players pretty much fell into his landing zone when he got the ball coming out of the baseline. How worried should we be? I'm thinking he's going to be out 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, I think so too.
At worst.
I agree.
Okay.
And you give him. I was texting you this last night about it. I said you give them a couple games. They don't play. They're through this. Mississippi State was the last of this really tough stretch. So they play some teams coming up that aren't very good. They play, and I know South Carolina gave them a tough game on the road, but they get South Carolina at home. Knock on wood, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but that should be a game Florida runs away with. LSU's not very good. They got coming up. Oklahoma's not very good. They got coming up. They got some games that they should be able to win even without Condon. You give him however many games off he needs, and then when it's time to roll, you give him whatever happy juice in that ankle they gave Walter Clayton a couple weeks ago, and ball up top. Let's go. I think he's fine, man. I don't know. I don't want to sound dismissive, but I told you this last night when I was texting you. It was weird. Like I was doing something before the game started, so when I actually turned the game on, I missed the first minute of the game, right? So I missed the injury, and they show Alex Condon down on the floor, and he's clearly in pain. I'm like, oh God, what happened? And the broadcast was making it seem like his leg
got amputated.
And I was like, what the hell? And they're like, yeah, scary sight here in Starkville. And it took me a while to find the because they weren't showing it on the broadcast. So it took me a while to find the replay on Twitter. And the broadcast said this is eerily similar of the Micah Hand-Lockton injury. I'm like, what the hell happened? And I look at the injury, I'm like, okay. He turned his ankle. Clinton, yes, X-rays came out negative yesterday, or last night after game. It's a low-grade ankle sprain. So he'll be fine, man. You give it a couple weeks, you let him heal, you ice, you elevate, you give the happy juice, and we're gonna be all right, man. But it seemed really dramatic. It wasn't the most graceful fall. It looked like it hurt pretty bad. I'm not trying to diminish it, but my God, man, eerily similar of Micah Hand-Lockton. Like Micah Hand-Lockton snapped his shin the wrong way. I was like, come on, man, that's a little dramatic.
Yeah, I'm obviously at work last night, so I don't hear anything from the TV broadcast, and I just see the game, but it's on mute. So I didn't hear any of that. I mean, when he went down at first, you're like, there's no way. And then you watch it again, you're like, I mean, if you think about it, Walter Clayton twists his ankle against what was it, Tennessee 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it like doesn't. It's not even a story anymore. Like it doesn't even. Everybody, me, you, and everybody else included, is like, all right, let's let them rest. We're not going to make a deep run in March. Now that's not even a story. Now Alex Condon's got the same thing, and we forget. I mean, I say this as if we're old. I mean, when you're 18, 19 years old and you twist an ankle, dude, you can be back in like 3 days. Now, obviously, there's severities of how bad it is. Like Walter Clayton still played the second half and then didn't play in the middle of that week of the following game because usually it swells up. But I mean, when you twist an ankle and you're that young, like it's not as detriment as it is, to someone that's in their mid 30s trying to play pickup.
Especially when you're getting 24-hour round the clock care.
Yeah.
And it's some of the best care you can get. Yeah, man. I think, look, it looked like it hurt like hell. I'll tell you that. I've sprained my ankle multiple times, and it on a basketball court, and it hurts bad. So it looked like it hurt like hell for sure. But I mean, man, I'm just telling you, like, man, between the broadcast and some of the tweets I saw, I'm like it's made it sound like he shattered his leg. And I look at the replay, I'm like, okay, like it looks tough. It looked like it hurt for sure. Kind of got crunched up underneath his body, which sucks. But yeah, to your point, man, I mean, you give him however many games off you need, because it's exactly what you just said. It's exactly the same conversation we had about Walter Clayton a couple of weeks ago. I came on here and talked about how I thought they needed to rest Walter because I felt like his ankle was going to be more severe than it ended up being. To your point, like he sat out one game and then it was like, all right, I'm back, and he's 100%, and it's like it never happened. So I think, man, you give him as long as he needs while it's still February, and even if it was early March before like SEC tournament play, before obviously March Madness and all that, and you just make sure if he can be back sooner, awesome. But between Rob was like, people like R.I.P. Colin with prayer hands, like exactly. I'm like, dude, like what? He turned his ankle, like that's it. But between the three guys that have been banged up, Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, and Condon, you obviously want to keep winning because you want to be a 1 seed. I totally get that. You don't want to be a 1 seed at the expense of the health of your best players. So I think the number one priority for Todd Golden and that medical staff in terms of the health is you got to make sure these guys are 110% fresh, ready to rock come mid to late March. When it's time to play SEC tournament play and March Madness, you need all hands on deck and you need all health on deck. And I think too, Dylan, this is something that I think is interesting to talk about. I want your perspective on it. Looking at this team, because it looks like none of those injuries between those three I just said are going to be like serious, like season-ending injuries, and it looks like they're all going to be okay and ready to rock when it matters, like we were saying. These injuries turned out to be a blessing because some of these other players that have gotten to play extended minutes have really blossomed in that time. And so now I think when you have some of these extra players now playing with really, really high confidence, and then you all of a sudden you get back some of these guys, now I think a team that was only 6 or 7 guys deep in terms of dudes that go on and play with a lot of confidence and know they can win. Now you've got a couple more dudes in the fold that I think are really playing tough. I think Thomas Houck, who did play a lot, Thomas Houck can play even more minutes now. He's better than he was a month or 2 months ago. Urban Klobzar wasn't even part of the rotation until Walter Clayton Jr. went down, and they kind of put him in the game a little bit out of necessity. Now all of a sudden he's a big player. So that can turn out to be a blessing in March because one of the main criticisms of them was they're not very deep. Now I think they are. Denzel Aberdeen has played extended minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the schedule the next 4 games, the rest of this month, you have South Carolina, Oklahoma, both at home, and then you go to LSU, to Georgia. So the schedule eases up a little bit. Obviously, you'd like to go undefeated in that stretch. You probably lose 1 game, if we're speaking realistically. And then the last 3 games are tough. You face A&M at home, top 10 team. Alabama, who'd they beat last night? Uh, who?
Texas.
Yeah, that's right. And then they play Ole Miss at home. So you have 4 easy games these next 2 weeks, and then you play 3 tough games to end the regular season before you go into tournament play. So you have a chance to, rely more on those guys, more of your bench guys that you weren't expecting to a couple weeks ago. And then, I want to ask you this from Clinton. I haven't seen any hate from the Gators, but he asked, "What do you think of the hate of our Gators beat number one
Yeah.
up to
You can pull that
3?"
up, or I can pull it up.
And Auburn stays at 1. We tied with Duke at 3. I mean, I really don't care as much as the AP, as much as, what can Florida do to get the 1 seed. It feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, if you can lose 1 game from here on out and then at least make the SEC championship, and that should secure you a number 1 seed.
Yes.
Now that's asking for a lot, but
yeah. I had to think about what you were like. I had to map out everything you just said in my head. Yes, I believe so that would mean if you only lose one more regular season game, that means you're going to end the regular season with only 4 losses.
Yep.
3 right now. So if you're a 4-loss team in the best conference in basketball, and then you at least make the conference championship game. Yeah, that to me is a 1 seed resume. It'll depend a little bit on what some other teams do. And yeah, like you just brought it up. I know. Let me just read through what Clinton said a minute ago. What you guys sorry. Okay. What you guys think of the hate of our Gators? Beat number 1 and up to 3, and Auburn stays 1, and we're tied with Duke at 3. What the hell? Clinton, I don't know that it's hate. I honestly feel like 3 is about right for where this team is at. You got to remember, first of all, that this team lost to an unranked Missouri at home. And that's just 1 game. But when you're talking about the top couple of teams in the country, every single game counts, right? And every single factor, every resume counts. And so I think that's part of it. You're saying Duke gets all the love. Like, yeah, it's Duke. Like, there's certain blue bloods just get that privilege. Like, we got to kind of accept that. That's not an anti-Gator thing. That's a Duke thing that has always been true for forever. Right? If this was Carolina, it'd be the same thing. If this was Kansas, it'd be the same thing. If this was Kentucky, it'd be the same thing. The programs. But there's certain programs that are always going to get that kind of extra love. Also, Duke plays in a not very good conference right now with the ACC, so they're just not losing a lot of games. So their resume is going to look not unblemished, because I know they've lost, but close to unblemished, because they just don't play in a very good conference. And then I think Alabama, look, so the 2 teams in front of Florida, because you're mentioning like the hate of our Gators, like Florida beating Auburn still being number 1. To me, that's a compliment to the Gators, right? To me, that's saying, okay, Auburn lost on their home floor to Florida when they were the number 1 team in the country, but Florida is so good, we're not going to drop Auburn. But I honestly don't like. I think that makes sense, because if Florida's good enough to be the number 3 team in the country, and it's a regular season game that Auburn loses, like, I probably wouldn't move them I probably would have dropped them maybe to like 2, but like, that's not that big of a difference. So I honestly think that's more of a compliment to the Gators than anything, because if Auburn had lost that game instead of to Florida, if they had lost it to Oklahoma, this would be a different conversation, right?
yeah.
And Clinton saying not necessarily hate, but we should have 1. That I agree with you. I agree. Florida's a projected 2 seed right now. They should be 1 seed. I agree with that. But to Dylan's point, I think there's a path to get that 1 seed right now that I think is pretty clear, and Florida very much controls their own destiny. And I just think at this point, I honestly think 3 is about properly ranked for the Gators. I think that's about where they are. That Alabama game is going to really tell us a lot of information. One thing I will say that I do really, really dislike this year, and I do think the Gators got screwed on. Dylan, can you explain to me, like I'm 5, why all of the premier SEC teams that Florida has to play, they're all on the road, except Tennessee had the one return trip. That's it.
Yeah. Tennessee split at Auburn.
At Alabama.
They
At
do play at Alabama.
what?
So they have A&M at home, and then at Alabama, and then Ole Miss at home. Yeah, this is the first time. Did you see?
Kentucky was at home, and Kentucky doesn't make a return trip.
Yeah. Either. Did you see? Was it Chris Harry? This is the first time Florida's had back-to-back SEC ranked wins. I think it was ever. I think he tweeted that out yesterday. Let me check on that. I saw it. And I'm like, the first time ever. I mean, of all, I know this is as good as the SEC's been in a long, long time. Yeah. Chris Harry last night. Gators improved to 21-3, 8-3 in the SEC. Best ranked opponents back to back on the road for the first time in school history without Condon and Martin to boot. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, this is the Gator basketball team that's beaten the number 1 team twice on 2 different occasions, and you factor that in.
And won both of those games against the number 1 team in very convincing fashion, by the way. Yeah. They beat Tennessee by 30, and they beat Auburn by double digits. Auburn had like a 3 with 15 seconds left or something to make it a 9-point game, but they beat Auburn by double digits effectively.
Yeah. Let's see here. We just be. Yeah, I'm just reading a couple of these comments. Yeah, I mean, it's going to play itself out. We still have 4 weeks until we even start the SEC tournament. I just don't get riled up because I know there's still plenty of basketball to play. I mean, we do this every year, college basketball. I mean, college football. We get in mid-October, early November. We yell at the TV. We go, all these teams, what are we going to do? And then they end up losing, and then it ends up working itself out. I mean.
Well, and too, like, when it's all said and done, 2 seeds play in the national championship, win the national championship all the time, or 3 seeds or whatever. Florida's going to be a high seed, and that's what. Ultimately, Florida wants a 1 seed. Obviously, that's obviously the goal. But it's not like the season's over if Florida ends up being a 2 seed on Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
again, which I'm sorry to keep cutting you off, but again, we talked about this earlier in the show. If you told me I can have a 1 seed on Selection Sunday, but Condon's not quite 100% yet, Martin's not quite 100% yet, Clayton looks to be fine, so I won't even include him in this, but if you're just going to tell me the overall health of the team is at like 80, 85% instead of 100%, but I'm a 1 seed versus, okay, I'm a 2 seed, but all my guys are ready to rock and they're 100% healthy. They got the proper rest they need. They healed up the way they need. I'd rather have that than the 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends to like how your bracket falls. Like if you're a 1 seed, but you're in a brutal side of the bracket, or you could be a 2 seed, which would be an easier side. You know what I mean? Like that's where I kind of lean. Like I don't really get caught up in if you're a 1 or a 2 or if things don't work out at 3. Like it's all about what side of the bracket you're in. Do you get a game that's closer to home? Because I mean, if you're in the South region, do you get a game that's I don't even know where the regions are. If you're in Orlando or Atlanta, as opposed to going to like Arizona, where your fans can go. That's kind of where. I think I care more about than the number beside your team.
Or if you're like, say you're a 2 seed and the 1 seed on your side of the bracket is Auburn, who you've already beaten.
Right.
Like you're so right. Like it plays out in so many different ways. The bottom line is, man, like this team is clearly good enough to make a deep run in March. There are going to be problems for every team they have to face. And we're gonna watch him keep playing. I think I agree with you. It depends on the severity of Alex's ankle, but I would give him as much time as he needs. And even Elijah Martin, man, like even if Martin needs more time, and again, we're not in the facility, getting constant updates on the injury. So I think last week when we talked about Walter Clayton, we thought his ankle was more severe than it turned out to be. I mean, that dude, did he even ever get hurt? Like, it's like it never happened.
Yeah, seriously. All right, Graham, a couple of things before we get out of here. Gator baseball starts Friday. They play Air Force. Your thoughts?
Say that again. Sorry.
I said Gator baseball starts Friday. They play Air Force. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So the way that I've kind of been steering the basketball ship, you're gonna have to steer the baseball ship because your boy is not a baseball guy.
Man, you gotta fake this. You gotta say a lot of stuff. You gotta fill time without giving me names. You gotta say, I like the pitching staff. They gotta work on the 4-5 hole.
I need to. I think what I need to do for baseball is I need to become an expert on all the things that don't matter, so I can spend a lot of time on that. I'll be body language expert. I'll be seventh inning stretch expert. I'll be walk up song. I think you learn a lot about a guy with his walk up song.
What would yours be?
What would my walk up song be?
Yeah,
I think it would probably just be the intro to Denmark and Marsh.
Would it just be us talking?
Yeah, I think it would just be the first 30 seconds of Denmark and Marsh.
Mine would be Kodak Skrilla. They would have to go to SoundCloud because it's still, for whatever reason, not on Spotify or Apple Music.
Got it.
Because that's a Florida man intro.
We got any football before we sign off?
Yeah, might as well. Florida got a GM, Nick Polk, and they signed I forget the other guy's name. There was that Nick Polk. I mean, that's just the way the college football is going. They got a GM. Basically going to handle a lot of the duties that Billy Napier shouldn't have to be doing, which is NIL and roster management and negotiating money and all that. I really don't have a thought. I mean, it's one of those like brand new things where every college program is becoming more like the NFL. And we'll see. I mean, all the good teams, I'm sure, will be good, and then all the teams that aren't usually good, they're going to try to rise up and do the same. So I mean, we'll see. I'm not really going to have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, it's so wild, man. Like, imagine 10 years ago talking about every college football team is going to have general managers.
Well, I mean, dude, think about this. Last Wednesday, we did a show. I'm a high school football coach, and I work at a sports talk radio station, and I didn't know it was signing day. Like, I woke up, we did the pod, I got in the car, I'm listening to Prosper on the drill on 1010XL, and I'm like, oh damn, it is signing day. I didn't even register in my mind. I mean, that just goes to show you like how irrelevant it is. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I know everybody's going to talk about how great it was once upon a time, and it was, but I mean, that's never coming back. It's going to be early signing day, and all these D1 schools want to have these guys sign in December, because if you wait till February, you don't know what your roster is going to look like. And if you wait till February, they're just going to wait for the transfer portal, which there's 6,000 kids in. So, I mean, it's that simple.
Well, it's going to end up being where it's not even called early signing period anymore. It's just signing period.
Yeah.
Because it's not even early anymore. It's just when you sign.
Yeah, I mean,
years ago, like even as recently as 2-3 years ago, you kind of normally have at least, maybe 3 to 4 kind of guys you'd add to your class there. Like, I remember Trevor Etienne was a spring signing, for example. But like, this year I think it was just Onus Conan Banny. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. That flipped from Tennessee to Florida. I think he was the only addition. So yeah, it's just different, man. I don't know. It's weird though. Like, once revenue share comes into play, do you need a GM for all that? I guess you still do, because outside NIL money will still be a thing.
Yeah.
But so I'm kind of confused there, because I keep hearing that all this stuff is going to even itself out and level the playing field once revenue share comes in. But if outside NIL money still exists, then how does anything change? Because then it's just you're making your revenue share money as a player. You're just getting your cut, whatever that is, and everybody gets the same slice of the pie, and that's fine. But that still doesn't change the fact that if I'm a diehard Michigan fan and I need a quarterback and I own Barstool Sports and I'm super loaded, I can just go buy a quarterback that's committed to LSU right now or whatever. Like, it still doesn't do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still think your 5-star, your top 4-star players that everybody wants. I still think that's going to be where, if I had to guess, the GM and the boosters and whatever, I think that's where they come into effect because the pay for play or the revenue sharing is like a lot of the guys that aren't really making any money, they're going to get a little bit more. They're going to get a little bit more money, but it's your Jeremiah Smith, your DJ Lagway, your top end players where it's like, okay, are they getting 2 million, 4 million, 10 million, whatever? That's where that NIL, the booster, and the GM all come to effect.
It seems like all the revenue share is going to do is just raise the floor.
Yeah.
To your point. But, like, there's still nothing capping. There's no salary cap still. There's nothing capping the ceiling to reining some of this in. I don't have an issue with NIL, Dylan. I think if you're one of the best players in the country and you sign a $5 million contract, more power to you. You're one of the best players in the country. Everybody wants you. We live in a capitalist society. That's how it should be. I got no problem with that. I got two main issues that we got all offseason to talk about, I know, and we'll wrap up here. But my two main issues are, A, there's no reason, in my opinion, that we cannot sign these players to multi-year deals. If I'm like for example, like for the Gators, like if I'm Florida and DJ Lagway is coming in last year, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He loves Billy Napier. He wants to come, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think DJ Lagway is the type of guy that's going to go transfer, shop around anyway, so he might not be the best example. And I'm just using him because he's closest to us. And I know for a fact that my coach is on the hot seat. There's a non-zero chance he might get fired. And he's born and raised less than an hour away from Texas A&M. So that you could see theoretical writing on the wall if things didn't go well in Gainesville last year, right? But I'm paying him a ton of money. Why can't I say, and I know why, it's because they're not employees. Why can't I say, okay, we're going to pay you this money, but we need you to be locked in for 2 years, 3 years. That should, I really hope that once revenue share comes in and the players are employees, I really hope that comes in. Because these guys deserve their money. Go get paid. You're one of the best players in the country. You've earned it. But just like the NFL, just like anybody else who signs a contract, you should be locked into a place for X amount of years. And you're not just a free agent every single offseason. That's what makes it not fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, for the fans, it's whatever. But as a coach, it's like, I can imagine, man, having 100+ players and literally all of them could be a free agent every single year.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. If I'm Billy Napier and I did all the work to recruit DJ Lagway, I got him on campus, I got him wanting to come, and I'm going to pay him the money he deserves. Why can't I sign him to a multi-year deal to know he's going to be here for more than just one season? That's the part that's crazy to me, and that needs to be fixed. And then my other issue, and this is along the same lines, with the transfer portal. I think everybody, when everyone was granted a one-time free transfer, I think most everyone was on board. Because at the time, you were dealing with Jimbo Fisher, who was ditching Florida State, going to Texas A&M, leaving all his players high and dry. Everyone believed guys like that should have an opportunity to go somewhere else if they want. They were recruited by Jimbo, whatever. And not just Jimbo, but all these other coaches, right? Everyone was for that. But this nonsense of you can transfer 2 times and 3 times and 4 times and just be immediately eligible is ridiculous. That is insane. If you want to transfer the one time, fine, go ahead. But that second time, it should be damn near impossible to be granted immediate eligibility. It should be like the old days when you were ineligible for a year. Because I think if you didn't have just unlimited free transfers, and I think if you knew that you only had the one free one, I think a lot of guys would think twice before they transfer that one time. But guys now are just like, yeah, whatever, I'll transfer because if I don't like it at my new place, I'll just transfer again. And there's no ramifications to that decision making. So between those two things, multi-year contracts and a penalty for if you want to transfer more than once, that wouldn't solve all the problems, but I think it would help navigate the waters a lot.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we've talked about it time and time again. It's I just couldn't imagine being a coach, man. I mean, in high school, it's already like that. I mean, if you wonder why kids hop and go from team to team, because they do that when they're 10, 11, 12 years old, and man, I mean, it's mainly manufactured from their parents. I mean, we had a coaches meeting last weekend, and one of our coaches was talking to us about, yeah, we have one kid that's playing for three different 7-on-7 teams for three different weekends. It's because one 7-on-7 team is playing in Tampa, and then the next one's playing in Valdosta, and the next one's playing in Orlando or whatever. And they're going to do is just get a T-shirt. So they're playing all these camp fees so they can be on these 7-on-7 teams, and it's a trickle down effect. I mean, it's like that. Then you get to high school, and now kids can get paid. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you saw yesterday or not. Like, the Baker County coach stepped down yesterday. Like, coaches don't, I have no idea. I haven't talked to him, and I have no idea why he stepped down. But I mean, it's very weird that a coach steps down in the beginning of February, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do. And again, I'm just speculating. A lot of it has to do with NIL, like, and your roster is just getting poached, and you're looking left and right, and you're like, I can't. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? I mean, high school football went Metro Suburban. They're like, all right, we want to change this up, and the same team still won state titles. In Metro Suburban, it was Cocoa, St. Thomas, American Heritage, Chaminade, and then they got out of Suburban Metro, and then guess who won state titles? Cocoa, St. Thomas, American. Like, it's not going to change. So the cat's out of the bag, and we've made this to where there's no rules, and now it's like for us to figure it out as long as we go. But if you're a coach, you better not pay for a cheeseburger for a player because that will get you sanctions for 2 years. Don't do that. However, I can give him $1 million because I do a pod and I want to see my team do good. What's wrong with that? I don't know what's wrong with that. All right, Graham, I got to do other things. And you get on the phone, get some sales, and we'll talk to y'all again next week. We appreciate all of y'all. We're gonna get this Facebook thing fixed. We weren't streaming on Facebook. It was only on YouTube. God, I hate Facebook streaming. I don't get it. So we'll get that fixed. Until then, we'll see y'all.
All right, gang.